Hello pro wrestling fans and people who randomly clicked on this video. I'm the Pro Wrestling Outsider. Welcome to another edition of PWO Talks. Okay, before I start on today's topic, a bit of a mea culpa is in order. When I made my Why I Love Professional Wrestling video, I stated that I planned on doing reviews of Bloodsport 8, Ring of Honor's Supercard of Honor, NXT Stand and Deliver, and WrestleMania Nights 1 and 2. However, now that I've felt out the video making process more and had more time to think about what I want to do for this channel, I've realized that making all of these reviews at once isn't what I want to do. I've started to realize that I greatly enjoy doing video essay style content with the PWO Talks videos. It's a much more freeing format than a review, as it allows me to focus on a lot of interesting topics instead of being confined to talking about a show blow by blow. Also, scripting that Revolution review was an ordeal. So I've made a decision. I'll still do a review or something resembling a review of NXT Stand and Deliver, but I'm going to forego doing reviews of Supercard of Honor and of Nights 1 and 2 of WrestleMania. However, I don't want to totally abandon the original plans, so I've decided to compromise. For each show, I'm going to make a PWO Talks video focusing on more specific topics related to them instead. I personally think that these more specific topics will do a better job at highlighting what was interesting about them than reviews could. Now, this doesn't mean that I've decided to stop doing show reviews altogether. I actually have a surprise review coming up later this month that I'm really excited about. I just feel like releasing all of those reviews for WrestleMania weekend would be too much of a workload for too little payoff, both in terms of engagement and creative fulfillment. So I'm just changing course a little bit. Oh, and finally, a huge thank you to Josh Barnett for quote tweeting my last video out to his 100,000 followers on Twitter. Josh, you're probably not watching this, but that really meant a lot, especially as a fan of your work. I cannot thank you enough. Now, on with the video. The Briscoes vs. FTR for the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championships at Supercard of Honor is a masterpiece. It is professional wrestling perfection. It is one of the easiest 10 out of 10s I will ever give. It's a gritty, bloody war. It's a crazy athletic spectacle. It's a smartly laid out display of what the physical performance art of pro wrestling is all about. It's a story of pride, raw anger, the desire for respect, the desire to be the best, the desire to be seen and acknowledged as the best. It's a story about four men on two opposing sides who walk into a fight with the wrong idea about the opposing side and walk out with a new perspective, a whole new level of respect for their opponents. I've watched the match 3 times now, and it's still just as potent as the day it aired. But why? Why is it all of these things? What made this match so great? What makes this match tick? I'm going to break it down, but first, let's talk about how we got here. So, WrestleMania weekend has come and gone once again. And honestly, despite my low expectations, it was one of the better WrestleMania weekends that I can remember. WrestleMania itself, which I didn't expect much from, was surprisingly good, especially Night 1, which was one of the best modern WWE shows that I can remember. NXT Stand and Deliver happened, I guess. Cool ladder match, at least. Bloodsport 8 was totally awesome, as I said in my last video. At WrestleCon, the Mark Hitchcock Memorial Show and Impact's multiverse of matches had some pretty good stuff on them, the best of which involved Speedball Mike Bailey, this weekend's indie MVP. I haven't seen the New Japan show yet, but I've heard that that had some good stuff too, including Minoru Suzuki screaming, "F you, young boy," at Killer Cross before pile driving and pinning him, which I've gotta see. However, even with all of this good stuff going on, Ring of Honor's Supercard of Honor, which aired on Friday, blew past all of the others to cement its place as the best show of the weekend. and it did so partially off the back of one of the best professional wrestling matches I've ever seen. Supercard was a show that was turning a lot of devoted wrestling fans' heads due to the events and circumstances leading up to it. It was a show of firsts. It was the first Ring of Honor show since its former owner, Sinclair Broadcasting Group, temporarily shut it down and laid off all of its talent after Final Battle 2021 last December. It was Ring of Honor's first show under its new owner, All Elite Wrestling CEO Tony Khan, who bought the promotion in March. And it was the first and probably only WrestleMania weekend show ever to be headed up by Khan. Khan had vowed not to run WrestleMania weekend shows under the AEW banner, as he didn't want AEW to appear secondary to WWE. However, Supercard of Honor had already been announced by ROH's previous owners, so Khan decided to move ahead with the show. He and his team scrapped most of whatever bits of a card had been planned before and put together a new card consisting of both previous ROH talent and current AEW talent, some of whom had worked for both. Expectations for the show online were quite high after the card was announced, especially because of the announcement of the Briscoes versus FTR. Many were wondering how the show would go over, both because it was the first show under the Khan regime and because it was airing opposite SmackDown and, more importantly, the WWE Hall of Fame, where The Undertaker was being inducted. And the new Ring of Honor blew it out of the park. Supercard of Honor 2022 was a great wrestling show. For starters, it was very well paced, clocking in at a total of around 4 hours including the 0-hour pre-show. None of the matches overstayed their welcomes or felt like they were too much. There was a pretty interesting overarching angle involving Jay Lethal's heel turn that had a strong payoff with the debut of Samoa Joe. And the matches themselves absolutely delivered. There was only one weak match on the main card, that being Mercedes Martinez versus Willow. All of the others were at least decent. Swerve Strickland versus Alex Zane was a solid opener. Jay Lethal versus Lee Moriarty was a great classic Ring of Honor style match with some excellent selling from Moriarty. Josh Woods versus Wheeler Yuta was a good pure match with a great moment at the end. Brian Cage versus Ninja Mac and Minoru Suzuki versus Rhett Titus were really fun live murders, and the main event between Jonathan Gresham and Bandito in a title match was a great clash of styles and even had some good drama. Even with just these matches and these angles, you'd have a pretty solid wrestling show. But they didn't just have these matches, did they? They had the Briscoes versus FTR. This match is the reason why over 2,000 people piled into the Curtis Caldwell Center for this show after only 500 tickets were sold before this match's announcement. This match is the reason why 20,000 people bought this show on pay-per-view, smashing Ring of Honor's previous record of 12,500. And that's not even counting members of Honor Club, ROH's subscription service. This match is the match that literally everyone was talking about last weekend. You've probably seen the buzz. Even people who don't normally watch ROH were into this match. Considering how little people have cared about ROH for the past few years, unfortunately, that says a lot. And if you've seen the hype for this match, you know that most people thought it delivered on said hype. And it's kind of surprising to me that it delivered so well. It over-delivered, honestly. You see, it was only my 5th most anticipated match of the weekend, and it mainly lagged behind the others due to the challenges faced by the build-up. The build-up to this match started at Final Battle 2021, after FTR, the team of Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler, jumped the Briscoes, the team of redneck chicken farmer brothers Jay and Mark Briscoe, after their victory against the OGK for the ROH tag titles. The build had some interesting ideas to it, but it was sadly limited mostly to social media. This was because of 2 major issues. One, as I mentioned before, Ring of Honor, the home of the Briscoes, ran no shows between Final Battle and Supercard, so you couldn't build it on Ring of Honor TV. 2, the Briscoes could probably have been on AEW TV, the home of FTR, to build up to the match, had Jay Briscoe not posted a homophobic tweet 9 years prior that caused Warner Media executives to not want the Briscoes on television. Jay has since apologized for his tweet, but unless something has changed behind the scenes, I don't know if that'll help at all. That's just great. You can say something really crappy on Twitter once and you can't get on AEW TV. But hey, a convicted rapist who bragged about beating women? Perfectly cool and good. Anyway, the gist of it is that they couldn't build up to this match on TV, so the wrestlers had to do all of the work themselves online. They both cut pretty good promos on each other, as both teams are good on the mic. Overall, the story boiled down to each team believing that they're the best team in the world, while believing that the other team is inauthentic in some way. FTR stated that they believed that the Briscoes were, to borrow the old cliche, big fish in a small pond, that their status as one of the greatest tag teams of all time was in question due to them spending most of their careers in Ring of Honor. The Briscoes, on the other hand, believed that FTR were a manufactured product, a pale, corporate-created imitation of great tag teams of the past. To add an interesting wrinkle, FTR said that it would be difficult to get a match with the Briscoes off the ground because neither team would want to give up the loss and admit that they were the weaker team. This added to fan interest. Fans love drama and friction. The day of the match itself came with great anticipation from the fans. The match was, strangely, put on in the first half of the show instead of in the main event or co-main event spot. The speculation was that this was done to avoid it running head-to-head with the WWE Hall of Fame, which is the only understandable reason why it wasn't higher up. This was very much a match everyone had been clamoring for, even before Final Battle kicked off the feud, and it was one that was very likely going to burn out the room. As soon as the match got started, it was clear that that would be the case. We get a video package hyping up the fact that tonight is the night. Good promos from both. Both teams make their entrances to great reactions. FTR has some of the best entrance music in the business, bar none, and the Briscoes' "Reach for the Sky, boy" is perfect for creating pops. FTR's trunks had their team name in the same font as the old ROH logo on it. They're out with their AAA Tag Team Championships. Both teams got in each other's faces, with Cash getting in Mark's and Dax getting in Jay's. The commentary team of Ian Riccaboni and Caprice Coleman sold the match as a battle for authenticity. Now, it's time for the handshake. Now, in Ring of Honor, matches are governed by something called the Code of Honor, in which every match customarily starts with a handshake. FTR refused the handshake, which made sense due to how heated the feud got on social media and how it was built around a lack of respect. Then, the bell rang. The crowd is chanting "Holy S" as soon as the bell rings, but they're not saying S. Other chants we get include "This is awesome," dueling chants of "Dem boys" and "Top guys," the two teams' nicknames, and "F WrestleMania," but they're not saying F. They've got the fans already, and they will only get hotter as the match really gets underway.
Wish you were here right now.
Man, you can feel that.
I got goosebumps.
I got goosebumps, man. Oh my God.
Harwood pumped up. We're going to see who can manage their adrenaline.
Before I break this match down in full, heads up. I'm going to spoil all of it, so I would highly recommend watching it for yourself beforehand. You can do this by purchasing the VOD from FITE. Link in the description. Now, let's break it down. Mark Briscoe and Cash Wheeler start off the match. They start with a tight lockup and the crowd explodes for it. When was the last time you heard the crowd explode for a lockup? Right away, the story is that both of these teams wants to prove that they're the best tag team in wrestling and that neither team wants to lose their cool and have things break down into a brawl. They're starting off measured. Mark takes control with some takeovers and strikes via his patented weird redneck kung fu style that the crowd eats up. Mark wrestles Cash into the Briscoes corner and Jay tags himself in. Cash rolls to the opposite corner and Jay yells at him to tag Dax in. And he does. They lock up hard and trade holds. Dax escapes a head scissors, and then he spits on Jay. This moment is when the match really starts heating up. It goes even further in establishing the animosity between the two teams and is the moment where the story of this match really starts. Jay maintains his cool and goes for a headlock, sticking with the wrestling game plan instead of being thrown off and trying to brawl. The commentary points this out. He hits some shoulder tackles, but Dax takes over with strikes. Jay fires back with a Hurricane Rana and blasts Dax out of the ring. Dax attempts to get back into the ring, but gets knocked off the apron. And then again, Jay taunts him. Dax, out of frustration, grabs a chair, and this happens. Amazing job by referee Paul Turner. So basically, the reason why he threw the chair seems to have been to cause a distraction so he can get back into the ring without Jay knocking him off the apron. It doesn't exactly work, because Jay grabs the chair and, despite it being taken from him, is still 100% ready for Dax to get back into the ring. This time, though, Dax is ready for him, ducks a strike from Jay, and shoulder blocks him in the abdomen. Dax gets in the ring, drags Jay into the corner, tags in Cash, and rams Jay into Cash's knees. Cash takes control with strikes and whipping Jay into neutral corners, but Jay counters with a back elbow, a kick, and then another back elbow. He wrestles Cash into the corner and tags in Mark, who blasts Cash down with strikes and a vertical suplex. So far, Mark has been playing the heavy while Jay plays a bit more of a face-in-peril role with occasional comebacks. This gets changed up a little after Cash blasts Mark with an uppercut, throws him into FTR's corner, and tags in Dax, before they beat him mercilessly with hammer fists. This allows them to work Mark over for the first time. Dax gets in there with Mark for the first time in the match, which commentary points out. They're seriously on the ball here. Dax takes control in a neutral corner, but makes a mistake when he chops Mark. This leads to Mark chopping back, and he gets into a chop battle with Mark, which commentary points out is a bad idea. Mark starts standing tall, goading Dax into hitting him harder. Mark no-sells Dax's chops as Dax sells Mark's more and more every time Mark hits him. Commentary says that you never go strike for strike with a Briscoe, and Dax is doing a great job of selling that. The last two chops from Mark knock Dax to the canvas. After the last one, Dax gets up, closes his fist, and punches Mark in the face, knocking him to the canvas. Dax tags Cash in. Cash goes for another punch, Mark blocks it, and they start running the ropes, which allows Jay to tag himself in. Mark then sets Cash up for a big boot from Jay. Jay stomps a mud hole in Cash, then tags in Mark, who works him over with some seriously stiff strikes. The striking in this match looks fantastic across the board, by the way. So snug. They knock Cash pillar to post and Jay blasts him with another big boot. Mark runs across and knocks Dax off the apron, then drop kicks him while he's out as Jay grabs Cash and throws him to the outside. Mark grabs the top rope and lowers it, and Jay jumps over to hit a tope con hilo on both members of FTR on the outside. Then, Mark drops an elbow off the apron onto Dax. This is what the Briscoes do best. Start off simple with classic fundamental wrestling and then transition into a smash-mouth, high-impact style in which they blast tag teams down with huge moves. This is their element. Things break down into a brawl on the outside of the ring. However, FTR take control of the strike exchanges. It would probably have been a better strategy for the Briscoes to drag FTR back into the ring and attempt to win there instead of starting a brawl, because FTR enter their element when they start attacking Jay in tandem. There's no one better at tag team offense than FTR. They place Jay Briscoe under a table and then slingshot him into the underside of it. This is portrayed as the move that busted Jay's head open, but it's clearly a blade job. Now, I have mixed opinions about blood and blading in wrestling, but in this case, it absolutely improved the match and made the moves feel more impactful. Dax immediately rolls Jay into the ring and starts hitting him in the head, directly on the cut. Dax's hand gets bloody, which makes for a great, brutal visual. They start working Jay over, culminating in Dax placing Jay on the turnbuckle and chopping him several times, going for a superplex but getting knocked off. Jay goes for a splash, but Dax knocks him off the rope and superplexes him. He tags Cash, who cuts Jay off from tagging Mark. The crowd chants tag team wrestling. Cash grabs Jay and screams, "Get a good look at this," and shoves Jay's bloody head toward the camera. Dax flips Jay off. Amazing heel work, even though they're not fully heels. Commentary refers to Jay Briscoe as defenseless and then says, "How many times have we ever said that?" which is a great way of selling the gravity of the beating FTR are delivering on Jay. Cash hits Jay with a back suplex, exclaims, "We are tag team wrestling," in response to the crowd's chants, and then tags Dax. Dax works over Jay again and gets him into FTR's corner, but Jay starts fighting out, elbowing both Cash and Dax. Cash tries to drag Jay back into the corner by his tights, but to no avail. Then Jay attempts to tag Mark, but his arm gets grabbed and he gets whipped back into the corner. But he puts the boot up, stops himself, rolls under a lariat from Dax to the other side of the ring, and tags Mark. This is one of the best hot tags I have ever seen. It was interesting, unique, full of misdirection, and was both built up well and came out of nowhere. The perfect hot tag. None of that telegraphed, face in peril, slowly crawls across the ring while the hot tag guy bounces up and down on the apron, stuff that happens in a lot of promotions. It was a hot tag that was actually hot. Then, Mark explodes into the ring and outstrikes FTR 2-1 in a great exchange. The crowd is rocking for this. FTR tries to counter with a suplex, but Mark hits an enziguri. He gets kicked and whipped, but knocks Cash off the apron, elbows Dax, hits him with a Uranage suplex, and then clotheslines and uppercuts him in the corner, followed by an Iconoclasm off the top rope for a 2 count, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the first pin attempt of the match. Awesome hot tag sequence, by the way. They set an amazingly quick pace. Mark was on fire. Mark chops Dax as Fight Forever chants break out. Mark gets Dax into a fireman's carry, but Dax fights out and makes it to his corner. Cash tags in, Dax smacks Mark with an elbow, and Cash heads up to the top rope as Dax starts to set Mark up for the spike pile driver, but Mark fights out and slams Dax into the post. Cash jumps over the both of them and over to the other side of the ring, where Jay smacks him from the outside. The Briscoes then catch him and hit Redneck Boogie. It gets a 2 count. Perfect use of a finisher kick out. It came at just the right time in the match and the crowd bit hard on it. Mark tags in Jay and they isolate Cash in a neutral corner and try to set him up for a double superplex. Cash fights out, knocks Mark to the outside, and sets Jay up for a powerbomb. Jay fights out, but Cash gets over to FTR's corner and Dax tags in. Dax and Cash catch Jay in what looks like the position for the big rig, but Jay leapfrogs over Cash, avoids the flapjack, and lands on Dax's shoulders in a powerbomb position. Dax powerbombs Jay, and Cash, who had subsequently climbed to the top rope from the adjacent turnbuckle, splashes Jay. Dax covers for a 2. Dax is now visibly bleeding after he was knocked into the post earlier. Another blade job, of course. ROH chants ring out. Dax whips Jay into the ropes and Cash gets behind him in position for the big rig once again. Mark rushes the ring and knocks Cash out, and Jay fights out of Dax's flapjack attempt. Dax swings wildly with a clothesline but misses Jay, who pushes Dax into the ropes past Mark. Mark catches Dax in a flapjack and they hit the big rig, stealing FTR's finisher. I love move stealing in wrestling, and this was a great example of it. This really sells the story of the Briscoes trying to prove that they're more authentic than FTR. They're basically saying, we've been doing what you do before you even existed, and we can do it better than you can. Awesome. Both the crowd and commentary lose their minds. Caprice Coleman in particular shouts himself hoarse. Cash can't get into the ring in time to break it up, but it's okay because Dax kicks out at 2. Cash drags Jay out of the ring. Mark knees Cash in the head off the apron, then swings wildly with a clothesline as he gets to his feet. Cash ducks it, grabs Mark's head, looks for a tornado DDT off the barricade, thinks better of it, and then does the tornado DDT off the apron instead. I liked this little moment of indecision from Cash. Some would criticize this, but it felt like it still made sense within the context of the match and would be something a wrestler would do within the heat of the moment. Jay kicks Cash in the gut, hoists him up, and hits the Spicoli driver on the floor. Jay tries to get back in the ring, but Dax is in the ring and strikes him as he tries to get in. Dax puts him in a vertical suplex position and tries to suplex him back into the ring, but Jay counters and tries to suplex Dax to the outside. They trade attempts a couple times, and then Jay wins the exchange and suplexes Dax to the outside. Caprice blows out his vocal cords again. In my mind, this entire exchange from the Briscoes' redneck boogie up to this point is this match's signature series of moves. It's the most memorable exchange from the match and the moment that this match has been building up to the entire time. It's a high-impact athletic explosion that nonetheless felt earned. The way they sell it afterwards is brilliant too. The doctors come to ringside to check on Dax and ask him if he can still move his arms and legs. They're checking on Jay as well. Dax says, "I don't want the match to end like this, Doc." Cash is right next to his tag team partner, holding on to him, selling the gravity of what just happened. They didn't need to sell it like this, and many other wrestlers wouldn't, but the fact that they did makes the match feel that much more dramatic, and the moves they've done mean that much more. Mark gets up and is now bleeding due to the tornado DDT, another blade job. FTR and the Briscoes get to their feet as the countout starts. Briscoes are in the ring first, and then FTR get in at the count of 8. The crowd is willing them on. A fight forever chant breaks out. FTR are holding on to each other to stay standing. Once again, the men come face to face. Dax opposite Jay and Cash opposite Mark, albeit in very different conditions than they were in at the start of the match. They trade forearms as Dax backs Jay into the right side neutral corner. Cash charges Mark, who is leaning against the ropes but gets low-bridged. Dax then charges Mark, who gets the boot up. Mark then goes to the top rope and Cash attempts to grab him, but Mark swings wildly with his foot. Cash dodges and hops down to the outside, and Mark hits a corkscrew moonsault onto Cash. Great misdirection. I thought he was going to go for Dax. Commentary sells this as Mark trusting his brother to deal with Dax on the inside of the ring and going for Cash instead to stop him from interfering. Good call. Dax and Jay, who I may remind you are still the legal men, get to their feet and trade for forearms and elbows. Caprice says a fan is going home with a tooth tonight, man. Both men are down to their knees. It's a stalemate. They get back to their feet and start striking even faster. Jay gets the better of the exchange. He hits Dax with a rolling elbow. Dax bounces off the ropes and Jay catches him with a neck breaker on his shoulder. Mark comes off the top rope with a froggy bow onto Dax and Jay covers him. It's only a 2. Jay muscles Dax up, tags in Mark, and lifts him up onto his shoulders in the electric chair position. Mark climbs the ropes as they prepare to hit the Doomsday device, their other finisher. Cash is up on the apron for the first time since the moonsault and attempts to knock Mark off, but Mark chops him in the neck. However, this distracts him long enough for Dax to fight out of the electric chair. Mark comes off the top rope, but Dax gets out of the way in time as Mark flies to the other side of the ring. His knee lands on Jay along the way. Dax grabs Jay and tosses him out of the ring. Cash gets back in the ring, and Mark runs out of FTR's corner and straight into the big rig. Dax pins him. Cash grabs Jay as he tries to run back into the ring. 1, 2, 3. FTR win the match. They are the new Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions. This is their first reign, ending the Briscoes' record 12th reign at 111 days. Fantastic finish. The Briscoes almost had it won and proved that they 100% were not just a big fish in a small pond, but one critical error and the distraction work of Cash cost them the match and the titles, proving that FTR are more than just a manufactured product. Post-match, Cash and Dax embrace profusely as they're awarded the titles. Dax compares the title to the font on his trunks. Kerry Silkin, the former owner of ROH from 2004 to 2011, hits the ring and raises FTR's hands. Commentary says that they believe that respect has been earned between the two teams and that they're way more alike than they realize. FTR approach the Briscoes. They're given a standing ovation. They lay the belts out on the floor in front of them and bow. The two teams shake hands and embrace, recognizing the code of honor. This is the culmination of their feud. They're both admitting that they were wrong about the other team and that they're both two of the best in the world. FTR gives the ring to the Briscoes as the crowd gives them a standing ovation. The crowd chants, "Thank you, Briscoes," as the commentary team raises the question. Is this really it for the Briscoes in Ring of Honor? Are they seriously being blocked from appearing on ROH or AEW programming by Warner Media? Well, as the sole representative for the thoughts and feelings of the entire queer community, I have an official statement prepared. We hereby forgive Jay Briscoe for his homophobic comment on Twitter in 2013 under 2 conditions. Those 2 conditions are as follows. 1, that he does not say or do anything homophobic again for the rest of his natural life. And 2, that he and his brother, Mark Briscoe, agreed to put on at least one banger tag team match per month on either TBS, TNT, or pay-per-view. There. That's the official statement from the entirety of the queer community. You have no excuse now, Warner Media. Put these guys on TV. Not only have they apologized, not only have they earned it with their hard work over the years, but they've earned it by creating a ton of the thing you want to put on TV. Good wrestling. If a few crackpots get mad at you on Twitter for this, oh well, you've made an omelet, so what's a few broken eggs? Okay, enough of that. I've got to run down the rest of this post-match. So you know what that means. It's segment time. Suddenly, as the crowd is thanking the Briscoes, they explode out of nowhere. They see something. Oh no, it's the Young Bucks. They tune up the band and then superkick the Briscoes as they turn around. They hit the BTE trigger on Jay. Caprice chastises the Young Bucks for doing this and says, "Do you have any idea how many times the Briscoes have beat the Young Bucks?" They go for the Meltzer driver, but FTR runs back from backstage. Dax takes the mic, calls them pussies, and asks if they can hear them and if they can hear the crowd. He says that he was grateful to wrestle in Dallas, Texas against the greatest tag team of all time. This cements the fact that FTR now deeply respect the Briscoes. Dax then points out that the Young Bucks are dressed to wrestle and challenges the Young Bucks to a match for the ROH titles. The Bucks then refuse and say that they'll do it on Wednesday on Dynamite. That's a pretty stupid challenge from FTR and an even stupider refusal from the Young Bucks. They almost couldn't continue the match earlier and now they're sending out another challenge? And the Young Bucks could have swept in there and made quick work of them. But instead they refuse because they want to be jerks to the crowd? This is my only criticism of this entire match and the segments around it. Anyway, Young Bucks remind the crowd that they were here a few years ago, left, and then formed an entirely new company that bought ROH. They say it's good to see everyone again and advertise their match on Wednesday before saying, "See you in Boston, pricks." They hold up the ROH and AAA titles that FTR left on the stage. The crowd chants, "F the Young Bucks." Dax then takes the mic and says, "Hey, haven't they buried us enough?" Nice. He then says that it's not going to be a gymnastics routine and that they'll beat their asses. And that's it. Plot holes aside, this was a fun, hot post-match with a good surprise appearance by the Bucks. In conclusion, this match is a shining example of everything great about professional wrestling when it's done correctly. It was both a meaty pro wrestling match and a true spectacle. All four men put in a Herculean effort and endured very real pain in order to deliver the best match they possibly could, and the crowd rewarded them for it. The structure of it was both a fairly classic tag team wrestling match structure and a structure that makes sense considering how evenly matched these teams should be due to their experience levels and the accolades they've racked up. Overall, it started off as a fairly slow to mid-paced pro wrestling match with hold exchanges, broke down into a brawl, and ended as a bloody fast-paced war of attrition, full of big moves, 2 counts, and extended sequences on the outside. In other matches, similar finales have felt rote or cheap, or like they were doing moves for the sake of doing moves to pop the crowd. But in this one, they made them matter thanks to the ferocity of their moves, the blood, and the quality of their selling. There wasn't a whole lot in the way of limb work or any long-term selling other than the general selling of exhaustion and the wear and tear on their bodies, but the match didn't really need any of that within the framework of its story. The general selling was pretty good at least, especially when the doctors were checking up on the two teams on the outside. I also found it pretty interesting that they didn't go for any pinfalls until deep into the match. It showed that it took a lot for either team to be put down by one of the others for a pin. Now, in terms of heel and babyface dynamics, they were a little weird here because FTR are in the middle of a face turn in AEW. FTR still nominally played the heels due to the Briscoes being on their home turf. However, the crowd clearly liked both of them, so instead of getting invested in any kind of good versus evil story, they were just going crazy the entire time. This type of blurred dynamic doesn't always work, but it works here because the crowd just so badly wants to see these two teams wrestle, and because these two teams delivered exactly what they wanted. This made the atmosphere amazing. The crowd had already bought into the match before it even started. The teams could have just done by-the-numbers stuff and the crowd still would have loved it, but they absolutely went above and beyond. Where this match really excelled was with the quality of the work itself, the way they strung moves together, and the story they told. Their strikes looked amazingly stiff, their moves looked fantastic with minimal cooperation, they stayed on each other believably instead of taking breaks to pop the crowd, and they generally made the whole thing look as much like a true contest as you can within the context of pro wrestling. There was a ton of complex misdirection, such as with the first Big Rig attempt, or with the finish regarding the Doomsday Device attempt into the Big Rig, or with Jay's hot tag especially, which really stands out to me. This made the match feel suspenseful. The finish felt like it could have come at any time. This is the true glory and beauty of great tag team wrestling. Great tag team matches seem to be more difficult to put together due to the amount of moving parts, but at the same time, the potential for cooperation and collaboration in putting matches together and in executing various maneuvers is almost double that of a regular singles match due to the increased number of participants. When watching a match like this, the amount of tag team maneuvers and misdirects that two men can come up with almost seems like it's limited only by your imagination and your physical capabilities. They make it look effortless. And of course, the story, even with the build being limited by problems outside the ring, was told incredibly well just through the wrestling and their mannerisms in the ring. I really bought the idea that neither team felt like they could give up the L. and that they both truly believed that they were the best and were willing to go to brutal lengths to prove it. Due to the lack of handshake and Dex spitting on Jay, I truly believe that neither team thought that the other was the genuine article. At first. And then, at the end, I believed that they had truly learned the full extent of the other's greatness. I believed that they had changed and learned and grown. They took me on a journey. That is what wrestling is all about. The journey that these characters take. And this journey, bell to bell, was absolutely watertight. Special shout out to Ian Riccaboni and Caprice Coleman for helping to tell this story, by the way. They might be my favorite commentary team in wrestling. Commentary in wrestling is like the Greek chorus in a play. They're there to fill in bits of the story and keep the audience up to speed, and these two do this better than everyone else. The Briscoes vs. FTR is the best match of the year so far, edging out Page vs. Danielson. It's one of the best matches of the past decade. It's one of my top 10 favorite tag team matches of all time. It is a masterpiece that will be remembered for years by the people who tuned in. I'll never forget my first viewing of this match either. I was watching Supercard live with my partner. They're a casual fan of wrestling who enjoys it for the over-the-top characters and general insanity of the art form. We both loved the match, and their running commentary on the insane nature of wrestling and their increasing investment as it went on was a joy to watch. And that's what wrestling is all about. It's a fun, wild thing to watch, whether by yourself or with the people you love. You watch it to get wrapped up in the craziness of it all and let the performers take you on a fun journey. This match is pro wrestling. And you know what? I'm gonna say it. This match is sports entertainment. Okay, I know. Hear me out, though. Sports entertainment has become a bit of a vulgar phrase to certain sections of wrestling fans. Now, I'm of the opinion that all pro wrestling is sports entertainment, and that sports entertainment is a wider genre that includes stuff like monster trucks, but to many die-hard wrestling fans, sports entertainment denotes a certain type of pro wrestling focused less on the physicality and intricacy of the in-ring performances and more on broad entertainment meant to please the masses with drama, goofiness, and pageantry. But you know what? Briscoes vs. FTR fits both molds. It's a beautiful, intricately plotted out performance that fits what the diehards want out of wrestling, but it's also an explosive spectacle filled with great character interactions, misdirection, and over-the-top pageantry. Let's entertain a hypothetical for a second. If this match was built up by WWE for WrestleMania, and it happened exactly as it did here, in front of over 70,000 screaming, sports entertainment fans with no changes, blood and middle fingers included, everything, do you think that the crowd would be sitting on their hands the entire time because it's not over the top or entertaining enough or whatever? Personally, my money would be on them going completely insane by the end. Wrestling fans like to put up these divides, like big leagues versus small time, or pro wrestling versus sports entertainment. But to me, the best pro wrestling matches are universal, no matter if they take place in a huge stadium or if they take place in a bingo hall somewhere in Michigan. They fit every mold. Athletic spectacle, great drama, interesting story, broad entertainment. They could happen anywhere and enchant any crowd. They're the kinds of matches that most wrestling fans and even non-wrestling fans of all kinds can watch and understand. Even if it's not their thing, they can watch it and say, okay, I understand why other fans were drawn into this. FTR vs. the Briscoes is that kind of wrestling match, and the performers worked as hard as they possibly could to make it that kind of wrestling match. And that's maybe the thing I love about it most of all. Well, that's it from me. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, hit like. If you didn't, hit dislike. Let me know what your favorite pro wrestling match of the year so far is in the comments. And if you want to see more from me as it comes out, hit subscribe and the bell to see more. I'll see you next time.